go back and enjoy it. But we are going to call the meeting to order. First, we need to approve our agenda meetings.
Agenda and meeting minutes.
Agenda and meeting minutes. Thanks.
Motion to remove under agenda item, what was this, 6AB from the agenda?
6AB. Okay.
Which was the allocation board?
All right. It was the D&I committee report.
Yes.
All right.
So motion to add an item B under new business, SIU system Civil War, or Edwardsville secession, either way.
I think I'll go with the secession.
Okay.
Secession. Civil War.
The war of
On the
Edwardsville
minutes.
You
aggression?
could do like a hyphen or something like both. Just debate.
Yeah. All right. That is added to the minutes. We'll go ahead and call for that to be approved.
Motion to approve the amended agenda.
Motion to approve the amended agenda. Motion, seconded. All in favor? All right. Agenda has been amended. And then also now to motion.
Actually, hold on a second. Motion to add item C under President HLC report.
Okay. CHLC report.
Sorry.
That's all right. Motion to amend agenda. Motion, second. All in favor? Sounds great. All right. Approving of our
Point of information, what was the first edition?
first edition was, or the first deduction was yours. The first edition was the SIU secession, SIUE secession. That was going under 4B, or addition of the B underneath item 4. And then also the next edition would be item C under the president's report.
Thank you.
Okay. And now to approve our previous minutes, can I get a motion on the floor?
Motion.
Motion, second. All in favor? All right, motion passes. All right, moving on to old business. GPSC officer nominations. Any new nominations from the floor? 4.
Can I nominate myself?
Yes.
Or someone should, yeah, I think I will.
You, okay,
Or
For Clay's possession.
okay.
okay.
So for Vice President, Student Affairs,
Is that the academic affairs or the graduate school things?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
Small.
also have to wear the suit every week.
That's what it will be challenging for me, by the way. But I will try.
All right. Any other nominations from the floor at this time? Okay. Yes.
If I remember correctly, we had one nomination that needed an
Josephine.
acceptance. Yes.
Yes. Josephine was a decline. Okay. All right. That was who we were waiting on now. Any other nominations at this time? All right. As a friend, it looked like you're about to say something.
I don't know if we require it, but potential motion for a reading of the current nominations.
Second.
Second. Good. All in favor of a reading of the current nominations?
Sure. Do you have those notes?
All opposed? I do, yeah.
Sweet. Read them out.
Alright, give me a second, I'll get to Notes. Let's see. Current GPSC officer nominations for president: Jordan Maddox, Clay Awesome, for vice president of administrative affairs, Derek McDowell, and Diana Greenhan. For vice president of graduate school affairs, Jordan Maddox, Lauren Schaefer, and Abdul Samad. And for graduate council reps, I don't have last names with these.
That's
and
fine.
Hopefully I pronounced them correctly. I have Jordan, Kyle, Derek, Matt, Katie, M, Donnie, Emily, Rachel. Josephine is eliminated. Brianne, Diana, Lauren. That's the record I have.
Brianna wants out.
So who's the vice president of graduate school? You said there's a vice president of student affairs, right? And there's a vice president of graduate affairs? And so isn't Diana have a different position?
Vice President of
Administration.
Yep, yeah, that's the conclusion of the reading. I'm sorry?
Okie dokie. Moving on to item B on the agenda under new business, clarification regarding the GA memo. So I had a chat with Associate Provost Dalala, who is no longer acting in the capacity of co-provost, about the GA memo. So essentially, grad assistants in terms of the breadth of the application of their degrees will be held to the same criteria as faculty. If the faculty doing the appointment determine that a given graduate student is qualified to teach the subject matter, regardless of where their or what field their degree is, or their degree's in it, or is in, then the faculty can appoint that graduate student to teach. So essentially, if you have a degree, and I'm going to use philosophy as an example, if you have a degree in philosophy and WGSS wants to appoint you to teach intro WGSS, then if the WGSS faculty say it's cool, you can be appointed. So these are similar. It's similar to how faculty with degrees in fields that are not specifically in a given department are appointed in those departments. So that clears all of that up. Again, there will be some flexibility with terminal degrees, and the associate provost should be issuing clarifications on that as we get closer to deadlines for contract submissions to the provost's office. Any questions about that? Okie dokie. Item 4, under new business, university-wide committees. So it's come to my attention that the university isn't fulfilling its responsibility to convene university-wide committees, which at this point in the semester or the academic year, I am completely unsurprised. To be clear, by university-wide committees, I mean any committee convened by the chancellor, his designee, or other administrator that covers a university-wide affair. Affirmative Action Advisory Committee, Chancellor's Budget and Planning, Parking and Traffic, Student Health Advisory, any of the HLC subcommittees, all of that stuff. It is my understanding that some of these committees are meeting infrequently or not at all, or have not received direction from the chancellor, which is a problem because a lot of these committees deal with things that are of import to me, like student health advisory. And
So, can I just say that since October, this has been like an issue, and not only an issue as this, but even the grad council committees have not, my grad council committee has not met one time.
Yeah.
So, I don't know exactly if everyone just hit pause because of the reorg or what actually happened. It's just like there are no answers, and even the heads of these committees don't actually have like an answer. I mean, for the committees I've been involved in, don't actually have an answer as to why we're not conducting business as usual.
my understanding is that some university-wide committees are charged by the chancellor and therefore meet at his or by his direction, e.g. he directs them to meet. Usually he does, or usually chancellors do that at the beginning of the semester, so things like SHAB would be charged by the chancellor to meet to begin its process to do its thing, and would have no more kind of direction from there. Same thing with Affirmative Action Advisory. Graduate Council is an interesting situation because it's my understanding that all of the grad council committees, with exception to new programs, I think, have ground to an immediate halt because the reorg has thrown everything in disarray. But that excuse only holds for graduate council. It does not hold for something that is unrelated to the reorganization of the institution. So essentially what I would like to do is lodge a formal complaint with the board regarding the failure to meet of a number of university-wide committees for all the good that it will do. I say this because constituency bodies filing formal complaints about the failure for university-wide committees to meet tends to put it on their radar, and they may ask questions. Or they may tell us, well, these committees are meeting, your reps just haven't been there, at which point we can say, well, if these committees are meeting and our reps haven't been there, then the committee chairs have not been doing their duties and reaching out to our reps. So therefore, all I need is a motion to approve a letter of complaint to the board regarding the failure to meet of, or failure to convene university-wide committees. Can I get a
I motion that, and I have my emails if you need them.
motion, and do I get the second? All right. All in favor? All opposed? We'll send yet another tersely worded email / letter to the board.
If you need the email evidence for the HLC stuff, I can do that to you too.
That would be very helpful. If you are a representative to the to any one of the committees, as I said in the email for this meeting, please let me know if your committee has met, if your committee chairs have been in regular contact with you, so on and so forth. Because if the answer is a resounding no, then we have a larger problem on our hands. Okay, moving down the agenda. Item 5, academic reorganization. Oh yes, Edwardsville secession. My bad. So item B under new business is Edwardsville secession. So as reported by the DE, a number of House bills have been submitted to the Illinois legislature, specifically House Bill 1292 through 1294, which call for the creation of SIUE as separate universities, the reconstitution of the Board of Trustees and changing its membership requirements, and the reallocation of state appropriations between SIU Carbondale and Edwardsville. With House Bill 1293, the reconstitution of the Board of Trustees and changing its membership requirements, that bill would strip the student trustees of their voting rights on the Board of Trustees of either campus, which is a bad idea because essentially the presence of student trustees, as per the literature that I've read in redoing the student trustee election policies, says that the student trustees perform a valuable role in providing input to boards of trustees who are otherwise disconnected from the realities of student life on campus. That is to say, boards of trustees make decisions about institutions without considering the ramifications on the student body, and it is the responsibility of the trustees to make them aware of those facts. How they do that is generally up to them, but all of the literature in higher ed said this is the sole reason why one would have a student trustee above all others. So House Bill, and I'll get to you in a second. So House Bill 1293 is of particular import to us, even if we ignore the fact that these bills would propose the separation of the system. Now, these kinds of bills tend to show up once every 3 or 4 years, usually proposed by the same legislator down in Edwardsville, which has led to some on this campus kind of brushing off this latest attempt to separate the system. I think that is a foolhardy move, particularly because the political and social context of this bill, or of these bills, is much different. Previously, these bills were submitted without the support of the 4 Democrats down in Edwardsville, including the East St. Louis representative. Now it has all of them. So this isn't just one legislator attempting to separate the system as he has done for several times in the past. It's one legislator and a whole bunch of his colleagues across the aisle with the weight of public opinion trying to separate the system. So insofar as our faculty and administration are taking this less seriously than I would like to impress upon you that this is a wholly different situation than the ones in 2013 or 2005 or 99 or the other times that Senator or Representative Hoffman has attempted to move forward separation bills. This bill has bipartisan support and the weight of public opinion, and Edwardsville's track record of doing well for itself under a condition of financial austerity. Plus, they loaned us $35 million. So regardless of our extensive history supporting the Edwardsville campus, in the eyes of the legislature and the public, the fact that the campus that was considered our junior had to effectively bail us out sends a pretty strong message. So generally, that's about that. One of the things that these bills would do is change the affiliation of the School of Medicine to SIUE, which is particularly problematic as, if you recall, during the budget impasse, this campus did borrow from the School of Medicine to keep its doors open. So not only would Edwardsville go, but potentially the School of Medicine and some of our dental programs down here would also go, which would make Edwardsville a major player in that region for students. It would also allow Edwardsville to encroach on some of Carbondale's traditional sources for enrollment and recruitment, which would mean bad things for this campus. And so to be clear, and the DE can quote me on this, our faculty and administration might have won a short-term victory for this campus at the cost of the entire system, which I warned them about, and they did not listen.
So I do have a question about that. So this House bill, was it introduced after the debacle about the $5 million? Okay, so this was kind of like a strategic plan then, strategically placed.
I mean, you could think of it that way, sure.
I came straight from the Missouri Senate into law school. This is what happened.
Yeah.
Like, it was strategically, this is what they're doing, and this is to activism. This is political activism to stoke the fire of public opinion. And so I don't think that this will pass this session because, I mean, the session's going to be over so soon, the end of May. And we've seen just such turmoil in the Illinois legislature last summer. And I just really don't think that they will have the backing that they need. So if this is to come to fruition, it will have to start all over in August. So I don't think that we have a lot to worry about right now on this, but because this will have to go through the House and then also the Senate to even become anything. So I think that you are right that it's gaining steam, but I don't think that it's something that we have to worry about this year, and it's probably not likely to pass even next year. But I do think that this campus needs to get it together, and whatever we can do on this body, that we need to find out, like, we need to figure out strategically what we can do to fix some of these things, to make political opinion sway more towards the valuable education that this campus offers.
That's fair. I agree that these probably wouldn't pass this year, even though they're on track to have a hearing during this legislative session. But even if they don't pass this year, unless the board does something to, say, bring Edwardsville back to the table, theoretically, Edwardsville's representatives or their members on the board could hold the board hostage by failing to meet quorum.
But Edwardsville, they're getting people that are an older population. I know this from the committee. A lot of the numbers that they count are an older population that are going back to school in the new, just with technology and everything. And there are people that are having to go back to school that are in their 50s, 60s to try to catch up. And so they count these students, but some of their students are a much older population. And where Edwardsville is located, students from out of state, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, that are so close to Southern Illinois are not going to go to Edwardsville campus. So, I mean, I think that we have a lot of value here. I think we have a lot to offer on this campus, and I think that one of the biggest problems we have is marketing and all of this nonsense that happens in the media. I think that we need to actually take control of our own narrative.
Preach.
It's technically not on us,
Is
Lauren.
there an action item related to the discussion?
Nope, I was just providing information. If there were, to be clear, like this body can do whatever it wants. We could, vote to send a letter or some such in support. But as president, I would abstain from any vote on an action item on this because, in my view, the board made the wrong decision last Thursday. They should have.
Voted no.
Yeah.
Did you say you know what the bill numbers are?
Yeah, they are House Bill 5860 slash 1293, House Bill 5859 slash 1294, and House Bill 5861 slash 1292. You can find a lot of that in the statement made by the president and the chair of the board in today's DE.
Do you know the political opinions or in the state senate regarding this? Because I imagine it has passed both houses. If it's been introduced in the House or over failing largely, is this even on the Senate's radar? Do you know?
I don't. I reached out to John Charles about this, and as predictably, he's super busy. The chancellor spoke on this matter in the constituency heads meeting, and he doesn't seem too concerned about the legislature taking it seriously, which, again, I think is a mistake. One does not count one's chickens before they come home to roost. So regardless of whether or not it passes this year, we need to keep it, I would say we should keep an eye on this.
I think that I think this body should actually maybe even consider contacting our local representatives here. I mean, Terry Bryant, the other one, I guess he is like stepping down and there's going to be someone else coming. But, I mean, it's possible that we need to get our opinion of the matter, out. I mean, if we don't say something and it doesn't get ran in the media the way these things are being run in the media, then it's essentially we're just letting, silence can be perceived as acceptance. And I don't think that we need to be shown as accepting those.
So this Edwardsville strategy, in the statement that you sent us, they list all the people that they currently have support from. It's just their local legislatures.
Sheena, there's also a lot of state representatives that have been students of SIUC or have kids that go down here still.
Yeah.
So that's also.
Well, I mean, I think that's good. I think we need to show our opposition, at least. I mean, if you are genuinely concerned that this will come to fruition sooner than we have thought, I mean, there's been a lot of things, let's face it, this last year that have come to fruition on this campus that we did not see coming as fast as they did. So, I mean, if you're concerned about it, I think that maybe we should, like, Breon said, we should reach out to our own alumni, our own people that support us and support our mission on this campus, and that we need to get our actual opinion of the matter in the media.
That's fair.
So can I just say maybe we could get some volunteers to do the labor of figuring out who we should contact, who maybe has kids here, things like that, who we can get in support so we can.
I would like to say I'm not going to do it, but someone should do it. Representative Costello, his son goes to law school here.
Oh, yeah,
So
there you go.
he should definitely have interest here.
Which Costello?
Well, I'll volunteer. If,
His
people,
father,
like 2 people would like to
his
join.
father's a representative, his grandfather's a congressman.
Correct.
Okay, so where this matter is concerned, Lauren has volunteered as tribute to begin the process
Add that
of.
to my list of
Thank
committees.
you, Lauren.
Give us a name. But not like CV.
If we're dealing with the secession Shouldn't be like they brand Army and Carbondale.
Committee for Legislative Involvement, we'll come up with a name later. If there are no other questions and or comments about this matter,
I would like to contribute one thing to this discussion. Insofar the board did not take action on the matter, including an abstention that would have otherwise brought it to a deciding vote by the system president. I think the next board meeting itself will be a very telling set of interactions and discussions as far as where persons fall on how this might be resolved in other ways. The more I've thought about it, I think in particular the abstention vote in the context where even members of the board themselves had articulated the idea that it didn't make sense that this was an action item before the board insofar that it was just 30 days ago that they'd said, yeah, we formally agreed to hire a consultant to look at this to figure out how we might need to change funding. And I think sort of not making a decision is a part of how it was decided to not reallocate system funds in that 5.12 million was in a lot of ways looking up how Edwardsville would respond to that. And they have shown how they respond to that quite deliberately, insofar that it is obvious they lobbied prior to actually bringing the piece before the board with legislators for bringing the bill before the assembly. So I do think the next Board of Trustees meeting will be very interesting now that, so to speak, Edwardsville's shown their cards as far as everything that they did prior to putting that agenda item on the Board of Trustees agenda, and the specific sort of argument that they're making. So,
fair enough. Alright.
If I could color this just from my own understanding, we've got a coloring page, SAUE's got a coloring page. Two kids at a table. They don't have any crowns. We're like, here's some crowns. See what you can do. And they're like, oh, my picture's better now. I want all the crowns. So they're trying to just take all that away now.
Right. I agree.
I'd say it's more SIUC taught SIUE how to color, and then kept most of the crayons because it was better. And now SIUE is like, yeah, we're a better artist, give us more crayons.
So we built them, and now that they have established perpetual growth, they have outgrown us, and so they want to shutter us.
I would not frame it as Edwardsville wanting to shutter us, more Edwardsville looking to receive the allocation of fundings that will enable their growth. Katie.
I move that we continue on to item 5 on the agenda.
So you call for the order of business?
Yes.
Alright. Alright, item 5, academic reorganization.
Yeah, I don't think you actually finish it.
Oh, well, second for a call for the order of business?
Second.
Alright,
Second.
sweet.
All in favor?
Not all opposed? Alright, sweet. Okay, item 5. Alright, so this is probably the last time you guys get to see one of these lovely PowerPoints from me. Unless, of course, something weird happens between now and April 24th that requires me to make yet another lovely PowerPoint. So, let me make my thing work again. Where's my notes? There it is. Alright, so here we go. This is a gigantic PowerPoint. Alright, so this is the most up-to-date version of the academic reorganization chart. I actually used every program change packet, every RME, every piece of data or every document that I've gotten from the beginning of March until now to generate this version. There is no version of the full chart on the Chancellor's website, so good luck. But this includes every change that has happened from the beginning of time to now. The purple stuff are all of the schools that have been changed in the past 70 days, so since March. The blue stuff are the schools.
Is this on the GPSC website? Because I can barely see
It is not on the GPSC website. I'm not. There will be a. I'll go into an exploded view in a second. I'm just running through it right now because I didn't have time to upload it.
You're good. You're good.
All right. So the purple stuff is our units that have been received updated program change proposals, which is pretty much everything except for finance and economics, accountancy, transportation, physical science, engineering, everything in humanities, and that's it. So essentially, one entire college has not received updated RMEs. Half of another college has not received updated RMEs, and 2/3 of another college has not received updated RMEs. I put this together to indicate, or so that we could have some idea of where units are under the new, or as of right now, with the most recent program proposals whose deadlines for voting expire sometime next week. That being said, let's get right into it. All right, so this is the School of Health and Human Services. As per the last time we had to see one of these, Psych got their own school, which took behavioral analytics and therapy. Health Sciences and Human Sciences got their own units, which corrects some of the concerns of those units prior to the new Army packets coming out. So, where is it? Recreation Professions made it into Human Sciences, and I don't know why I have that listed twice. Which is one of the major issues. There is still an issue with there is still a concern with the organization of the Division of Social Work. It is my understanding that under the current structure, the Division of Social Work does not comply with their accreditation requirements, as indicated by a letter within the program change packet. Do not know if the administration has resolved this, and nobody can give me a straight answer on that matter. So there is College of Health and Human Services. One thing that we should note is that all of the new proposed schools will fall administratively under the Office of the Provost for the time being until their colleges can be created from the ether. And I say from the ether because creating a college is kind of a big deal, as we will see when we get to some of these other units. So basically the provost will be acting as a super dean to which the school directors will report, which is interesting, given some things from the constituency heads meeting. College of Business and Analytics, the only unit in this college that has received an updated RME is Marketing and Management, which absorbed Sports Administration and the Public Administration, or the Masters in Public Administration, which has been separated from Political Science, I believe. Everything else here is or is of January 20th or 20-ish. So there have been no new updates on the other two units in this college. School of Education got its, that's weird. Apparently it showed up like that when I full screened it. Anyway, School of Education just got its RME, and it is not that different from its previous iteration in the other program change packets, except the School of Education does not have a director. It has a dean. The School of Education is the only school in the proposed reorganization that does not have a director. It has a dean, which mirrors its current structure. Presumably the divisions under the school will still have division coordinators, but this introduces a interesting structural problem. The School of Education has a dean instead of a school director, and that dean is doing the equivalent work of the school directors. That runs into some interesting administrative issues, particularly insofar as the structures previously outlined say that the reporting line goes division coordinator, school director, dean. Abdul Samad, do you have a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can see the education administration and higher education duplicated.
Well, that one shouldn't be there. That one of them should be like social work. I don't know why it did it that way.
Yeah.
Probably because it's lagging on me.
And another one is, what about curriculum and instruction?
That's where C and I should be here.
Okay.
So I don't know why it loaded it this way. I don't know why it's not moving for me anymore. Maybe I froze my machine with this. Give me a minute. All right. Guess I broke it. Yeah, clearly this is not a thing that should be. Well. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it lagged out. Sorry, guys. I think I legit froze my own computer. All right. Do you want to move to the other thing before I get?
Sure. So this is the moving on to. Should we move on to Clay since?
Yeah, let Clay go while I fix this.
Okay. So we'll move on to item 6A, officer reports, graduate school affairs.
Sure. All right. So in the meantime, I'll do my report here for grad school affairs. So mostly relating to graduate council. The chancellor was present at the last council meeting. I did speak to the proposed reapportionment of SIU system funding, discussed it in the sense of it posing an existential threat to Carbondale. It would essentially require a reduction in hard deliverables, that being faculty, whether NTT or TT, as well as closing departments. Comments on the reorganization that the Chancellor offered described it as, quote, it's been a fantastic experience going through this, quote, the plan you engage is not the goal. I did articulate 5 goals as part of that discussion of the reorganization, listing them thus: collaborative community, eliminating barriers, opportunities, run and governed by faculty, and freedom. In the context of the enrollment management position and search, the Chancellor, when questioned, said that the second sort of search for more qualified candidates had selected 3 in that extended search, and the interviews were being scheduled. There was the effort to try to have someone in place by July 1st, the summer 18. Satellite Law Campus in Springfield, Illinois came up as a part of our meeting. The Chancellor, in responding to issues of that notion or idea, is that it is happening at the level of the SIU president. It was initiated by a developer as a part of a redevelopment of an empty lot in downtown Springfield, and the idea that it is very exploratory and preliminary. Also, there was talked about as a 6-month, but I believe the final edition discusses it as an 8-month accomplishment document that the Chancellor's office has produced. We can, if you are unaware of, find the link on which it has been provided from the university. They also discussed that in the Board of Trustees meeting that was, I believe that was last week, but it's hard to believe it's only been a week. Also, the issue of Title IX efforts and actions were brought up in grad council. Essentially, the austere funding and staffing of efforts within that area on our campus. The Chancellor, in responding to that, talked about there needing to be a coordinated effort in regards to the diversity plan. And, quote, don't want a gatekeeper as a part of how we address those issues, and the idea that those efforts need to be part of our culture. Under reports of the Associate Provost, Dave Dalala, discussed the idea that Dr. Komaraju was coming on board as the interim provost, pending what has now been finalized with Board of Trustees action. The notion that there is always some dominoes and the idea of needing then to appoint an interim dean of the College of Liberal Arts. There's the desire to move quickly so there's no gap in the leadership there, and they're currently working with NCOLA to address that. Also discussed the national search for the Associate Dean and Director of the Graduate School, and they're working on updating the document that would inform that search. And also, Delilah spoke to the notion that it would be irresponsible to not start talking at the dean level for contingency plans in the context of an SIU system reapportionment. And I'm not exactly sure where that sits after the Board of Trustees and there being no action on the reapportionment, but I would expect that those contingency plans are potentially still somewhat being addressed, but is likely something that needs to be revisited. For Associate Provost Chevalier, in discussion of the reorganization, the notion that none of us has done this before, and so every once in a while having to take a step back and to assess the process. This was brought up in the context of with the formation of the schools under a change plan, that those schools are now being formed under the provost's office until a final operating paper for the new school is established. And then that school, thus with its operating paper, would be shifted to its permanent home within an actual college structure. There was also a discussion of the notion of shifting our language to the idea of a faculty of record, not an instructor of record. And we did ask, as a part of that, for the guidance on teaching assignments in disciplinary areas, specializations. The comment from Associate Provost Delilah was the idea of following disciplinary norms. Jonathan gave you a briefing on the additional insights in that, more or less. What we'd sort of discussed before, the same kind of procedures that are applying to faculty will apply to those that meet the criteria for the Higher Learning Commission in the assignment of those teaching duties. For the Graduate Council Chair, announcements, speed networking that they've been working on was canceled for low participation. Responses to SIU reapportionment, they called for an executive committee meeting to author a resolution and letter to the Board of Trustees in response to the potential reapportionment of the system funds. That motion was passed. We did author a resolution, and the chair authored a letter that was communicated to the Board of Trustees through an emergency meeting that we held Monday the 9th. That resolution itself, and specific, called for an objective outside review, a process for parties to submit responses and concerns as a part of that review, and enough time for any affected campus to actually develop its plans in the context of whatever those funding changes would be. For the Graduate Council Vice Chair, Dr. Partridge, the grievance changes were tabled with new revisions and adequate time for the review of those revisions to be conducted. The sense of measure twice, cut once, and so that was successfully tabled, and the changes will be presented prior to the next meeting. So I should get some word on that with the executive committee meeting for Graduate Council this week. New programs, it was Dr. Shapiro presenting for Dr. Calvert. They'd begun the review of some new RMEs, but there were no resolutions. They received 3 changed plans. The continuing changes to plans, though, even after they've accepted them. In particular, no votes for the final plan or proposal are becoming problematic within new programs for Graduate Council, as well as questions and concerns over the notion of locating schools within academic affairs, essentially the provost's office, versus an actual college home. Before I move on to other aspects of that report, any questions with Graduate Council affairs? Nope. All right, quick bulletin on the surveys. The status did report previously that it closed March 11th. Participation was 368. The valid response is sort of to be determined. Approximately a 12 to 15% response rate, which is quite fantastic. We have gotten a great deal of admiration and congratulations campus-wide as far as that effort. We did submit the analysis plan and request for reports to ARC in March. We have received no questions and concerns or problems through their review of those requests and from ARC, so that's great. We're moving forward. And we have made a request for an expedited report of the university-wide output. ARC communicated the anticipated delivery for that expedited report during finals week, basically May 7th through the 11th. Ongoing activity, confirming the funding across different bodies of the university for the project. Also putting out feelers for the continuing funding and efforts on this survey and horizon. It's to be determined by ARC when the complete schedule of reports will be provided. It's looking like June. as well as then affirming that joint funding for the project with Student Affairs and the graduate school. And the last bit I have is coming from the graduate school, the interim associate dean for the grad school, Dr. Wallace. We revisited the grad school memo to the departments, schools, basically your home units, for processing applications for travel reimbursement in the case where that department or program, your home unit, does not have money to actually provide itself. The memo had not gone out yet, and Dr. Wallace did reassure me that she will revisit that, take action, and get that memo out. We also revisited the topic of graduate application fees and the department's use or non-use of the department's share of those fees in support of graduate students, for example, travel, for recruitment efforts, as well as just graduate student support within your home unit. And she will then begin looking into that. That was something that Dr. Lee had been working on before. We're glad to restart those efforts. We also discussed the graduate school monthly newsletter in the sense of distributing that to the grad council reps, for one, but also the possibility of a graduate and professional student council bubble as a part of those newsletters so that we can communicate directly with officials within the graduate school as well as grad studies program directors across the entire university. And last, raised the question of the new assistant dean of the graduate school, Dr. Morose, and a potential visit with GPSC or graduate council reps. And that concludes my report. Questions? Yes?
I was going to add to the grad council update that the new programs committee is meeting for the first time Thursday. I have a mentoring committee, so John's going to proxy for me. So we should have more information about like how we will be strategizing RDs from graduate council. That's all.
Have you received more RMEs in the past, what, 10 days, I guess, since the last update? Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Of pages of RMEs and updates to the former RMEs that were not complete because the new programs committee has decided not to create a formalized process that says if you don't follow the rules, we will not review this. So we're having to basically every time we get an RME, it doesn't have the signatures or the votes that are required, so then we have to go back to the department and colleges and say, we need these votes and things. So then we sit with it for a few days, which eats into our 60 days that we're allotted for a response to make sure that we get the votes. That's really the only way not to explain it.
There's also the issue of, at this point, those documents that are being received don't have the possibility for a 60-day review prior to the July 1st of the fiscal year, so I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, the argument that the committee, some of the people on the committee have said is that that we're not allotted an entire 60 days, and the 60 days is for the entire review process, if that makes sense. So it's like not just graduate council given those 60 days.
The 60 days is something stipulated in the actual operating paper of the council.
Yes. These are things that I have.
Perhaps we should talk a little bit more about that because I have executive Thursday morning, so that's stuff I can bring up there.
Yeah.
Won't belabor it.
Other questions for Clay? All right, let's return to the fun. So now that this is working properly, Abdul Samad, curriculum and instruction, right there. So the School of Education is the only school under the new proposal that will have its own dean. The program change packet for this particular school, and I'm indicating this just because, was 67 pages long and included multiple documents from multiple people, including different ways of organizing the school, which apparently were ignored, but it's interesting to note. The program change proposals for every one of these units are up on the GPSC website. Before the end of the week, I will be creating a separate section on the GPSC website that is an archive of every program change proposal received ever, chronologically. So if you wanted to go back and look at the changes in the program change proposals over the course of time, it'll be up there. I will do that soon. So, School of Education, the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences. Okay, this is a problem. So all of these 3 units are have been modified since the last time we got program change proposals. Their modifications have generally been approved by their faculty, with a notable exception, right? All of the faculty in these units do not want do not want the College of Science to vanish prior to their being moved, right? So essentially, zoology, plant biology, microbiology, all said that they would like to ultimately remain in the College of Science until the college is dissolved. Plant Bio said that the College of Science should continue to persist until the College of Science and Agricultural Sciences can merge simultaneously. Zoology said that they could not support the proposed RME until it stipulates, 1, that the College of Science will continue to exist until the proposed new college is formed, and 2, the College of Science will retain its own dean until the new college is formed. So essentially, the majority of the voting units have basically said, do not dissolve the College of Science, and then move us under the Provost's office. Keep the College of Science around until until the new college is formed, and then move us. Now, how the administration will deal with that, I do not know, because as per our last meeting, there was an RME that proposed to dissolve the College of Science under the auspices of the Financial Sustainability Plan. I do not know how that administrative street fight will shake out, whether or not the administration can simply dissolve the college and move the units by virtue of having had the sustainability plan approved, or if the faculty can literally hold this up until some sort of resolution is reached. So this is a particularly interesting problem, and we have, for the most part, until the end of the semester to figure it out, especially if the bodies that need to approve it want to actually have approval authority. So this is one of the situations. This is one of the strange situations that we are running into with the proposed moving of newly formed schools under the office of the provost, particularly where moving these units also means the dissolution of a college. Do not know how this will be resolved, and it's important to us because if the college goes, then the administrative support structures also need to be housed somewhere else, and theoretically that would be with the provost office, but if the faculty are fighting this, then we may be in a little bit of limbo for now. I will try to find out before our next meeting what the heck is going on with this, but for now, that's where we're at. More information on how the faculty came to these decisions, including the documents that they submitted to the provost office, can be found on the Faculty Association website. I will try to mirror some of that stuff on the GPSC website as long as possible. The College of STEM. So there are a couple of problems here. School of Computing and School of Allied Technology are the only units that have received new program change proposals. School of Transportation is apparently having conversations with the chancellor about their current structure, whether or not aviation will stick with automotive or something to that effect. Either way, there have been no new program change proposals for that unit. As I reported the last time we talked about the School of Physical Science, the folks in math are not happy with being in the same unit as chemistry and physics, so there is still some conversation among the faculty in those units trying to determine whether or not a whole new unit will be formed. Again, I have no knowledge about this because they're being fairly quiet. School of Engineering is just, thus far we have received no new program change proposal, which is interesting. COLA, or what is going to be some unholy hybrid of COLA and MICMA. No new program change proposal. The Chancellor said that he's waiting to submit a new program change proposal for this unholy hybrid of COLA and MICMA until after he's had time to consider the two proposals that have been generated by the faculty, which we will get to in a second. So nothing here has really changed. This version is pulled straight from the Chancellor's stuff, so I did not include WUGS, but theoretically WUGS would be in Social Science and Multicultural Studies. All right, faculty stuff. So this is the College of Social Science and Humanities as generated by the faculty. This is distinct from the Chancellor's proposal in that it retains departments and adds centers. Currently within COLA there are several centers of varying kinds. The Phenomenology Research Center, the Dewey Center, Center for Archaeological Investigations, the Writing Center, and the Writing Across the Curriculum program, which itself is not technically a center, but an initiative intended to enable faculty across curriculum to improve the writing skills of their students. To my knowledge, it has been sitting defunct, but reactivating it would fulfill the Chancellor's specific goal of improving the communication skills of students across disciplines. To be clear, we had a program that did what the Chancellor wanted it to do. That program was shuttered some time ago, and now he wants to reinvent the wheel. The faculty are like, well, why not just reactivate a thing we already had? This new proposal maintains our current departmental structure complete with chairs while adding these new centers to enable specific kinds of interdisciplinary work within the boundaries of the given disciplines. I'm going to pause here. Yes?
You have the Dewey Center up there. Is that opening again, or is that just...
Theoretically, under this proposal, it might, considering the focus of the proposal places a strong emphasis on the development of interdisciplinary centers that would make access usually, or knowledge that is usually discipline specific to units across the campus. And the Dewey Center, at least until its closing some time ago, was one such unit. Folks from education and other units across campus used to go consult the Dewey archives for research and other such purposes. So it's my assumption that under this proposal, the Dewey Center would come back to life, which is interesting given the kinds of unique requirements for running the Dewey Center, which I won't quite get into. But this is one of two plans that would retain departments. The other one is the one provided by some folks in the arts and MICMA, which I will get to next. To be clear, this model is shared by some of our aspirational peers in some institutions that are quite out of our weight class, where humanities-based research is concerned and is kind of innovative. I will refrain from opining on that unless y'all want me to. Yes?
I don't have a question about Cecil Wedding.
I have no idea where Cecil would go. If it's, since Cecil is technically a pseudo-support structure under linguistics and LSIT, it would probably move with them. This proposal does not have a program inventory attached with it. So my assumption is that since this proposal retains the other associated programs of these units, Cecil would go with the other stuff. Okay. All right. So this is the school or the College of Communication Design and the Arts. Yet another faculty-generated proposal. One of the unique things about this is it's very explicit that the units in this proposed college retain control over their support facilities, which I have listed on the right-hand side of the screen. This is worth noting because it's not something that the Chancellor included in his program change proposal, and I assume it's an assumption that the units would retain control over their specific facility spaces. And I know this was a potential item of concern for our colleagues in the arts and design, particularly with the provision of additional spaces, which is why existing and proposed spaces are also lumped in this facilities proposal. Again, This proposal duplicates some of the structures of our aspirational peers and other institutions that are well outside of our weight class, but does so in a way that apparently enhances the existing synergies between units. Both of the RMEs for these proposals are on the GPSC website, and I would strongly recommend that representatives in those units actually look through them and generate responses. And as a matter of fact, faculty responsible for the generation of both of these proposals have requested student feedback on it. So I suggest that if you are affected by these proposals, go have a look at them, circulate them among your constituents, generate some feedback either through your departmental bodies or send it to GPSC, and we will do as we have always done and send it on to the affected or to the administration responsible. Questions about this? Yes.
So these come out from faculty. Generally, do they have, beyond the faculty that has supported them, do they have much, support on campus, especially among the upper administrators?
The chancellor seemed really excited to see new faculty proposals come out that propose alternatives to what he wants. I think a sticking point for him might be the presence of departments, considering his repeated insistence that you can't have departments in schools at the same time. However, the chancellor has reportedly delayed the release of any new RMEs for the gigantic Cola Micma hybrid until he has finished considering this unit. However, are these two proposals. So aside from that, your guess is as good as mine. I know the faculty who generated them are real excited about it.
And this might sound like a simple question, but how likely is it that these plans might actually be moved forward on or put into effect?
Well, a faculty-generated RME is considered in the same way as an administratively generated RME, as long as the faculty have crossed their T's, dotted their I's, got their appropriate number of votes, and so on and so forth. By policy, the administrative bodies have to begin the consideration process. To be clear, this body, if it wanted to, could generate an RME and send it to the administration, and the administration could choose to advance it through the consideration process. Well, since we're not faculty, we theoretically don't have control over the curriculum, but there is no policy that prevents us from generating our own RMEs and sending them out. I wouldn't recommend doing it, but it's a thing that we could do. But since faculty do have control over the curriculum and certain rights in university policy and under the contract, it's not how likely is it that the administration will take this seriously. It's whether or not the administration wants to follow their own rules. And to be clear, since the chancellor has expressed pleasure at the presence of these two faculty-generated RMEs, I'm fairly certain they'll follow their rules up to a point. Again, I think the presence of departments in both of these proposals will be a sticking point. Other questions? Also, the Police Academy is reportedly tabled until extended conversation can be had about it. Aside from that, there is some... There we go. Aside from that, there's nothing really new under the sun regarding the reorganization. There is some confusion about about the ballots in some units for voting to approve the RMEs, mostly due to the location of the new schools under the provost. It seems that some units are definitely not happy about this, whereas others are actually kind of okay with it. Any questions about this? Okay. that is all I've got for reorg, which covers A and B.
Cool. I guess moving right along to me, correct? Yeah. All right. So this Sunday, me and 9 other representatives served on the Research Award Committee. So I want to thank those that served: Jordan, Derek, Josephine, Jake, Kyle, Jesse, Abdul Samad, Emily, and Lacey. So the way the process worked is that we had 94 applications come through. Those were divided, and actually it's more than we've had in past years, and so certainly a lot of really high caliber applications coming from all departments across campus, as well as the law school and also the medical school. Those were divided amongst teams. So from the 10 of us, we were paired into to 5 teams, and then asked to bring forth our best candidates for consideration. Overall, we've had 4 candidates that will be receiving $1,000, and those are, I'm going to butcher these names, and so and also 4 that will be receiving an award of $250. The award ceremony will be on May 1st, and that's a Tuesday, and that's going to be held in the Hall of Presidents in the library on the 1st floor. So we encourage all those who can come to come out and join us. I know that for the law school, unfortunately, that's your week of finals, so you may not be able to attend. But it's usually a nice event. We'll be joined by our interim graduate school dean, and so Dr. Wallace will be joining us and giving that presentation and medal ceremony. We'll also have food available, and we'll be inviting our recipients as well as their friends and family to attend. It's a nice event. I encourage you to come. And it also is our last official GPSC meeting. So, the time that I have, I think I have that scheduled reserved for 6:30. Knowing that we have the 6 or 6:30, I can confirm so that it gives time for the award and then for the general body meeting afterwards. So it's like an hour. So an hour before, so it should be 6:30.
Okay.
But I'll have that confirmed, finalized, and also because the room's already reserved, I just can't fit up for some reason. But also, what will happen now, as far as the process, that everyone will be notified. Press release will go out as well to kind of talk about these individual students, and then the awards will be financially processed. That's my exciting news.
Can you tell us more?
Sure. I apologize. I'm going to butcher these names. Christine Bajent, Lauren Stotzel, Noor Kazim, Ali Mahdi, Christine Bizel, Yusaku Yajima, thank you. Sorry. Deepak Hermath and Kazal Rohila. And yes, I will get how to pronounce their names from them in an email as we go into the award ceremony. As I usually do, I ask people how to properly pronounce their names. So it will go far more smoothly during the award ceremony. But yes, and from all various, and so, but from all various departments. So. Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it. So that's the exciting news I got.
All right. So Clay has already given his report on to me. So we had our constituency heads meeting on Monday, and as you might guess, the constituency heads meeting focused solely on the Edwardsville situation. So in response to this, the chancellor is. The Chancellor is reconvening the Chancellor's Executive Budget and Planning Committee. As you know, the Executive Budget and Planning Committee was a standing committee convened at the pleasure of the Chancellor to consider budget decisions that would affect the entire institution. It typically had representation from all of the constituency bodies, the Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance, and I believe the Chancellor himself. The reason why I'm fuzzy on these details is because that body has not met for the entire academic year. The Chancellor is reconstituting this body in an effort to provide evidence against potential reallocations and to shore up a defense against a potential board matter that would reallocate funding to Edwardsville. He is also going to engage this committee in determining the financial needs of the institution going forwards, and he wants to begin this work over the summer, which is why I got an email requesting a nomination to that committee. To be clear, generally the person who serves on that committee from GPSC is the president. So the president has a couple of basic committees that they serve on. The Constituency Heads Committee, the Chancellor's Executive Budget and Planning Committee, the Alumni Association Board of Directors, and whatever floating committee they so choose. When I did this, I picked Diversity Council and Administrator and the Affirmative Action Advisory, which has not met. So the Chancellor's budget or Executive Budget and Planning Committee will be reconvened for the purposes of defending the institution. He wants to streamline what it is and what it does, as apparently there was no mission for it, which is not exactly true. I believe there's a mission. We have a charge for it in our archives, but there is that. The Chancellor has also indicated his intention to begin some process of hiring wherein he will solicit faculty needs from colleges and organize them based on demonstrated need. Essentially, he has a set of 4 criteria that he will be using to determine the necessity of faculty hires, mostly related to the degree to which the given hire will affect our offerings and things like that. To be clear, having looked over our current roles of faculty, there is no unit on this campus that is not under strength per its operating papers. Let me repeat that. There is no unit on this campus that is not under strength due to faculty losses and vacancies, which is a problem. So the Chancellor has begun has indicated his intention to begin filling faculty vacancies from the funds available from those vacancies. The $10 million that we swept in budget cuts, he wants to use part of that to provide for new faculty on a need basis. So he is encouraging folks to submit requests either to his office or the provost's office. He was not quite clear about that, and I will try to provide additional clarity on that. So there is that. Questions about the constituency head meetings? Hires, things like that. I did ask the Chancellor whether or not he intended to develop a enrollment, recruitment, and retention plan for graduate education. He said he hasn't even begun thinking about it. Okay, so there are no questions about that. Moving on to the graduate school strategic plan. So, back at the beginning of the semester, Dean Lee presented us with a strategic dialogue called Where Graduate Education Should Go, and asked us for recommendations. We then decided that an ad hoc committee should be formed to engage with this, and as a consequence, from a committee of one, I have developed a set of recommendations. And to be clear, this set of recommendations is based on the first section of Dean Lee's strategic dialogue. There are 5 additional sections of the strategic dialogue that I've also done some work on, and by work I mean trolling through almost 200 pages of best practices, recommendations, reports, other such things to come up with some modifications to the existing strategic dialogue. So you guys are going to sit here while I go through it. The actual document, which I have distilled down to this PowerPoint presentation, is somewhere around 30 pages long, because that is what was needed in order to develop the proposed strategic plan. Yeah, so let's get to it. All right, so the way that this was broken out was I borrowed Dean Lee's initial graduate school philosophy, which was something to the effect of total quality care, which was broken off into a couple of sections. One of them was pre-graduate school, during graduate school, and after graduate school. The after graduate school section focused on alumni development and donations, which I thought was a problematic way to approach the future direction of the graduate school. For our purposes, I have eliminated all of that alumni donation stuff because, in my view, that is something best left to the individual departments. To that end, I developed a set of pre-graduate pre-graduate school recommendations on the basis of Nyquist and Woodford's problems facing the PhD, which was a 2000 survey of 365 graduate degree granting programs, K through 12 education institutions, governmental bodies, and administrators to determine specific elements and problems with the graduate education process. So from this, I came up with these first basic recommendations, essentially reconvening the Graduate Enrollment and Recruitment, or the Graduate Enrollment Task Force, which is really the body that should have been doing this instead of me, to engage in quantitative and qualitative data gathering to assess our potential issues where enrollment and recruitment are concerned. The reason why I focused on qualitative and quantitative data gathering is because, as the Graduate Satisfaction Survey demonstrates, on a budget of $1,500, you can get comprehensive data about graduate student experiences at this institution. Given that the graduate school has likely more money than that, there should be no trouble with the graduate school developing an instrument to gather the kind of data that I'm recommending for developing recommendations for enrollment and recruitment. One of these things is to adopt Goal 18 Strategy 1 of the 2011 Campus Lens Committee Climate Report. Yes, I went into the archives and dug that out. So Goal 18 Strategy 1 basically says that the graduate school should collect data on all of its admits based on demographics and develop plans to engage in recruitment and retention where those demographics are low. You'll see this Goal 18 Strategy 1 reproduced often through this presentation because it's a thing that we just have not done. The graduate school has collected specific kinds of data in conjunction with IBHE and HLC, but has never actually looked at our data broken down by demographics, by department, or by admission, which is one of the things that I'm asking them to do. Second thing, conduct an acceptance survey. This is actually drawn from those two rather large reports. The conduct of an acceptance survey is intended to generate empirical data on why students accept admission to this institution. Without this data, we cannot generate targeted recruitment strategies, specifically in areas where we are strong. This data in the larger report is recommended that it is broken out by department, so some departments may have stronger recruitments in some areas than others. This is also in conjunction with the 2015 Internal Efficiency Subcommittee report. Yes, I did a shit ton of research to get this going. That recommends each unit develop its own specific recruitment strategies because some units require more help than others with recruitment. That being said, one of the things that the institution should do is track longitudinally graduate student satisfaction across a graduate student's career. That is to say, from point of entry to graduation or failure to graduate, so that we can have hard data on the factors that affect graduate student matriculation and persistence, which we do not have. We have this for some sections of undergraduate education, but we do not have any of this data for graduate education, and we need it if we're actually going to generate recommendations for effective recruitment and enrollment strategies. And to be clear, I did steal a lot of some of this methodology from undergraduate recruitment. As an aside, some of this stuff does not apply to the School of Law because the School of Law has its own administrative structure and the graduate school cannot mandate that you guys do specific recruitment, enrollment, and retention things. So I apologize if you guys have to sit through this presentation for a thing that largely doesn't quite affect you. The next thing is these are all in line with the recommendation from the 2011 Campus Climate Lens Committee report, the 2008 report done by Stockdale and Miller about recruiting women as administrators, which I dug out of the president's archives, as well as some of the recommendations from the Diversity Council. This is a streamlined and simplified version of saying you need somebody in the graduate school to monitor all of the resources and recruitment of your underrepresented student population, specifically as, you know, some 7 years ago you were told to do this. This formalizes how they're supposed to do that through the consolidation of resources into one centralized clearinghouse, which would involve communication with the directors of graduate studies. Right now, that communication between DGSs and the graduate school is fairly thin, which is kind of a travesty considering the DGSs are the departmental point of contact for...
Point of order, how long, I know that some of us are sitting here because it does not apply to us, but others are also sitting in anticipation to move along because it's 9/12. But how long do you think it will be before your presentation wraps? Respectfully asking.
30 minutes.
Okay, well, could we stay this conversation to move to a few other things that may need to be voted on?
Like what?
Well, I just want to make sure that we're not going to lose quorum if we need to vote on certain things.
There's no actual item that, for at least for this, and since we've gotten through, is there anything on the agenda that needs a vote?
Not at this point,
Okay.
unless there's something that comes from the floor or from roundtable discussions.
Is there anything that comes from the floor or roundtable discussion that requires a vote? No.
Everybody's good? All right.
Okay.
Just checking. Carry on.
To be clear, the document that I spent forever writing, this body actually already voted on me doing it. So I'm just here reporting briefly the contents of this document. So,
And I appreciate that. I personally appreciate that. I just want to make sure, because we are missing some members already, I just want to make sure that because of the time, not because of your content, but because of the time, we do not lose any members and we don't hold quorum if there was something we needed to vote on.
Nope.
But please, carry on.
Nothing needs to be voted on. But yeah, the last item on this thing is to ensure departmental compliance with the posting of graduate assistantships, which they're already supposed to be doing, but is not widely enforced. This would require that the graduate school per semester go hunt down those assistantships and update that site monthly so that those of us who are hungry for funding have a centralized location where they can locate it. Right now that stuff is decentralized. Those positions are not updated as regularly as they should be. This would correct that. There is a larger explanation for that a little bit later on. This is the departmental responsibility for that, or essentially the things that the graduate school should hold departments responsible for in or under any potential strategic dialogue. Some of this is really basic, the provision of admission selection criteria, matriculation expectations, evaluation stuff. Some of that is pretty basic. You would think that departments would have all of this stuff readily available and clearly presented, but they do not. A survey of the majority of the graduate degree granting programs on this campus finds that so many of the programs have their testing and other such requirements listed, but not say ancillary requirements, writing samples, other such things that would go into the approval or the acceptance of an application. This is also based on the literature's recommendation that the unspoken requirements for application or admission be made explicit so that students who apply are not blindsided by criteria that aren't spelled out on the webpage, e.g., having a particular set of degree qualifications that are expected but not outright required. This recommendation says that departments, if they're going to hold something against a potential applicant, it needs to be spelled out on their application website. Same thing for funding and other such considerations. This one's a little bit more difficult to enforce, but it is essentially asking that that the consideration of GA appointments be done in a transparent way with the requirements for application listed clearly for graduate students. A lot of this stuff is really obvious, but it's just stuff that departments aren't doing, and given the administrative authority of the graduate school, this is something that the grad school could require them to do. Same thing with welcome packets. This is kind of an unspoken thing that happens within departments, but this is a thing that I feel should be required so that incoming students aren't dependent upon previous students to provide them with welcome packets or information that allows them to successfully navigate those programs. Those packets should be compiled, updated on a semesterly basis, and retained within the department. Again, a lot of this stuff is friggin' obvious, but it's just not being done, which is why we have policy. Same thing with the provision of faculty members and students as point of contacts for potential applicants when they visit campus, things like that. The one brand new thing on here is the rejection interview, which is essentially a brief questionnaire that asks the student why they did not consider this institution for graduate education. That data is really important if we want to increase our recruitment activities. It can be anything from funding to location to better offers, but knowing that allows us to address issues that we may not see, and I'm using we in the sense of the graduate school. Questions so far? All right. So during graduate school, this is the other thing that Dean Lee put on here. So non-academic support resources. So I did a lot of resources on graduate student mental health, particularly insofar as a group of researchers described the state of graduate student mental health as a crisis that requires a change in culture and administrative expectations. So non-academic resources in this section focuses almost purely on the provision of mental health services and disability support services, particularly insofar as many departments, I'm sorry to say, do not properly acknowledge the provision of disability support services for their graduate students. There is an expectation, unspoken, unwritten, that grad students do not talk about such things, which has led, according to the research, to this gigantic crisis in graduate student mental health. Recommendations from this literature say that institutional measures can help break this culture of silence and enable graduate student success in a way that maintaining these kinds of things does not. So the recommendations for, yes?
So you're saying that they don't have access to disability services?
They have access, but it's hit or miss as to whether or not departments actually grant the accommodations.
Well, that's a federal law.
Yes. I'm fully aware of
So
this.
what's the procedure then? Is there no procedure, or is this call for a procedure to be put in place?
I think it calls for a procedure to be put in place, which is on the next slide. But to be clear, most graduate students do not report these kinds of things out
Is
of
the problem because they don't know they can?
Yes, which is addressed on the next slide. Please.
I will wait patiently.
Right, so ensure departmental compliance with said accommodations, ensure communication with student disabilities between DSS and the department, which is the enforcement mechanism. Again, we have Goal 18, Strategy 1 of the Campus Climate Report. But this part is new. This is something that we have typically never done. So this is academic support and resources, which item 2 is something that we just do not do, which is provide graduate student-centric writing support, right? Essentially how to write grants, how to edit one's dissertation, how to prepare conference proposals, how to prepare abstracts, how to prepare conference papers, how to prepare any written document within your field. Many departments rely on an assumption that graduate students come in already trained to do this kind of writing and do not provide the critical instruction necessary to do it. As an example, I had to stumble through how to submit a conference paper way back when I was a baby MA. I was lucky enough to have an advisor who actually helped me out with that, but other graduate students are not so lucky. This would standardize that kind of practice by providing a center wherein graduate students could seek writing, particular kinds of writing support. The second thing is one of those things where I really hate saying this. I agree with Chancellor Montemagno. Interdisciplinary collaboration. One of the results of the data or the literature that I've looked at says that there is a three-way mismatch between graduate student expectations, the training they get, and their outcomes, right? So many of us go into graduate school with the expectation of getting a faculty position. We're trained for those faculty positions, and there are no faculty positions. So one of the things that item 2 or item 3 would do is enable us to engage in interdisciplinary kinds of work so that we can broaden the application of our research such that we can get jobs in things other than faculty, say administration or in business or in industry. That being said, Goal 19 Strategy 1 from the 2011 Campus Climate Lens report basically says that graduate students need to be trained to mentor undergraduates. And I agree with that. It's one thing to be a graduate student and then matriculate into faculty. It's another thing to be a graduate student and learn how best to mentor undergraduates, because that experience in my thinking and some of the literature can carry forward into faculty positions so that we do not run into this big problem of not having mentors. This is that. More academic support stuff. Update policies for academic misconduct and research misconduct. That's exactly what it says on the tin. Yet another one-man committee that I had to staff after receiving nearly half a dozen reports of academic misconduct among graduate students in this semester alone, most of which ended up with faculty not knowing policies or applying policies in ways that weren't intended. That was something we covered in the last meeting, but given that this is a strategic plan, that is a recommendation. Along with the second item, develop a mechanism for non-academic disputes between faculty and graduate students. Right now, if a faculty member does something that is not covered under the academic grievance policy, there is no mechanism for adjudication there. So a faculty member who, say, steals some of your research, you could probably try to get that adjudicated under the current research policies for faculty, but good luck, right? So there needs to be a specialized mechanism whereby graduate students can resolve disputes that are not of an academic nature between themselves and faculty. And there's just no two ways about that. Third one, same thing. There is no mechanism for resolving disputes between graduate students and their dissertation/thesis committee/directors, which is a big problem. And the last one, make sure people know their rights. Questions about this? Yeah, it's kind of shocking that we have no policies for those middle two, but that's where it's at.
I got a policy, I just don't think it'd be approved.
Fair enough.
Take my word.
All right. During graduate school, and we are like 3 slides from the end. So during graduate school, degree completion and career preparation. So one of the things that all the literature has said is that we do not adequately prepare graduate students for careers beyond the academy. And this is not discipline specific. Even the STEM folks are not prepared for careers beyond the academy. So one of the things that these recommendations are developing mentorship programs, providing experiences in classroom and one-on-one settings as project managers in a variety of discipline-specific roles, and providing opportunities for discussions on the dynamic of the field, the academy, and the implications of our work beyond what we're supposed to be doing. Basically, if we're not being trained to think beyond the traditional model of go to graduate school, become faculty, when we get out of graduate school and there are no faculty positions, we're kind of screwed because we do not know how to apply our work beyond the narrow confines in which we've been trained. These recommendations would fix that, but these recommendations require work on behalf of the faculty, which is something that, again, all of the literature says is a problem. Faculty members and administrators need to have a come to Jesus moment where they recognize that part of their responsibilities as faculty is to ensure that we as graduate students have the appropriate amount of training and the adequate preparation for the world beyond grad school. Currently at this institution, they are not. Or it's hit or miss. Second, postgraduate or post-graduation placement. Some units have what are called placement directors, which track where our grad students go. But these placement directors have a variety of responsibilities. So what this does is provide a formal set of recommendations that says, look, if you're going to be a placement director, you need to provide information on employment beyond the academy, not simply go look for a faculty position, but find other ways that your degree can be useful. As an example, in my own field, tech firms are now hiring ethicists to consider the implications of AI and all the other random software stuff that happens so that we don't have Cambridge Analytica again. Second thing, provide effective mentorship in job searching, job application, including provisions of resources for locating postgraduate employment. This is a thing that is, again, hit or miss across departments. Some departments are really good at showing their graduate students where to apply to jobs, how to apply to jobs, and so on and so forth. Other departments are abysmally bad at this. This recommends the development of a standardized kind of way of doing that. Discipline specific, but still standard. It's basically saying do it in the way that your discipline is supposed to do it. Maintain a list of the places where you're supposed to go looking for jobs, things like that. Essentially, it's drawing on some of the methodologies currently in use at Career Services, which is interesting given that Career Services is strongly focused on undergraduates. They have nothing for graduate students. Believe me, I asked. Finally, track placement of graduate students both within and outside academia and disciplines. This is important because it provides us with information as to where our graduates are going, what kind of jobs they're getting, which can help with the initial bit at the beginning, wherein providing placement data can be used as a means to draw students into our institution. And that is the end of that. I said 30 minutes, and these are some of the sources I used. So I actually did a crap ton of research. Questions about this? Yeah.
It's all slow clap. Slow clap.
I am really concerned about the situation on accommodations for the graduate students. You know, with the statistics that we deal with as law students, law student, we always deal with like law student and med student, the statistics surrounding those programs of such a high stress rate that several students, there's like a large statistic on how many people commit suicide. Well, with graduate students, I mean, I understand that that's a lesser statistic, but it's still a statistic that is quite substantial. And so I think that without having an adequate procedure on how to request those accommodations, because accommodations don't just come out of thin air. I mean, these are physician documented, you know, medical necessities. And so I think that having reasonable accommodations and a procedure to actually have those would be something that really need to be discussed further.
And the larger document recommends exactly that graduate students be provided on point of entry information about DSS, CAPS, things like that, and faculty members be provided with information to recognize warning signs among graduate students, which is borrowed straight from the literature that has basically said we need to start doing this, otherwise we're going to see a ballooning of this. In fact, the Berkeley report listed somewhere on here, down there, found that between 43 and 45% of all of their graduate students experience some form of extreme stress as a consequence of their graduate education. since we have not done any statistical data data collection for our institution, don't have that measure, but I agree.
Well, one thing the law school does, and this will be my last comment, is that they require in all of professors in the syllabi to list how to contact disability services. And so an actual, like, who you're contacting, like how to contact them. So that's in every class we take, that is in the syllabus for each class. So that might be a suggestion that you could probably implement quickly.
Fair enough. Other questions?
So, do you mind please to share that?
The PowerPoint?
The whole, yeah.
Or the whole document? Do you want to read 30 pages?
I really learned a lot, and that's what makes me, I mean, yeah, when I have time in summer, I will go and read more.
So the whole document will be up on the graduate or the GPSC website at some point this weekend. I am making sure that all of my citations are correct and all of my appendices are organized, so probably by the weekend the full document will be up if you guys want to go through and read it. Yeah.
If you could send it to me before Thursday, that would be great, so I can take it to the mentoring committee.
I will do my best. Other questions? Okay, so that is the fruits of a semester's worth of research, both on this institution and beyond. To be clear, we still have subcommittees that are working on some of these problems, mental health, mentoring, and I look forward to the reports from those committees. Okay, so moving on to item D, committee updates. Oh crap, I added item C, HLC on there. This actually doesn't require a vote. I sent out the HLC assurance argument with our email thing. Jordan got back to me with some very choice words about it, which I do not disagree with them. If you ask my professional position, or if you ask my professional position on the HLC assurance argument, it is inappropriate to accomplish the aims set for it. In fact, some of the information in the assurance argument is in contradiction of the information provided by Vice President Caldwell in his 2017 performance report, particularly where strategic planning and development is concerned. This is a problem, and to be clear, HLC has been an ongoing thorn in my side from the beginning of the semester, specifically insofar as the HLC process seems to exclude graduate students in very real and material ways, from the focus groups to our input on the assurance argument. At this point, I'm not entirely sure what to do about that, short of filing an actual complaint with HLC or just sending the report. Actually, I've already done that. I sent the HLC report to you guys. Feel free to send it to your constituents, whomever you want to have a look at it, tear it apart. I do not care. But all this is to say that the assurance argument as drafted, again, is inapplicable to the task that it's supposed to perform. I cannot see how this is a valid representation of what's going on this campus. Like, point blank, full stop. Question about this?
Why aren't we filing an actual complaint?
So what?
Why aren't we filing an actual complaint?
Because I haven't gotten around to it, and if we...
Can we contact HLC ourselves?
Yes, HLC has a complaint process that is specific to accreditation and the accreditation process. It's on their website.
Can we invite HLC when they visit campus to GPSC?
You could. The site visit isn't until 2020. So.
January, I think.
Yeah, January 2020.
January or February or something like that.
I, for one, will not be here for that.
Can we request that they audit the HLC process?
I'm not sure. I will get back to you on that. I don't know that HLC... I mean, you can file a complaint and HLC will investigate said complaints, and all complaints must be related to the institution's accreditation, which I believe includes the reaccreditation cycle, so we can theoretically make a complaint concerning the assurance argument under development.
I motion that GPSC file a complaint with HLC.
Second
Okay. The motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of filing a complaint with HLC?
Well, one comment with that, as far as what would, what would the specific criteria of said complaint be?
I know that we at least have pretty decent evidence that graduate students have specifically been left out when we emailed the Criterion 5. Their argument was the computer crashed and therefore they lost all their emails, but when emailing the HLC steering committee chair, they only gave them the names of undergraduate students and not graduate students. But the chair of the steering committee says that they had our names the whole time. So in some way, shape, or form, graduate students just got left out. We also have the evidence that they had the focus groups. I don't think anyone who's on the HLC committees for graduate students, and none of the graduate students knew that those were happening until John randomly walked into one. There's also, I know that there have been informal subcommittees formed off of the subcommittees that graduate students have not been invited into. And all of the assurance arguments were drafted without graduate students, even the drafts. So they drafted the first one without us being there because we weren't on the committees yet. Then John got us all assigned to committees. Even after, I know Donnie and I gave them a lot of feedback, they went and rewrote the second draft and then didn't even tell us that had been posted and didn't invite us to be part of drafting the second draft, if that makes sense.
We did give them a lot of pushback in.
Yeah.
Right.
My only concern is a motion to pass something independent of the specific execution of that thing. So in the sense of passing a motion to file a complaint without having the actual complaint constituted. So in that context, it would potentially be more appropriate to file a motion for the authoring of a complaint for the consideration of the council versus.
The only concern is we don't normally do business at the last meeting, right?
Oh, it's a meeting with an item of agenda, or with the item on the agenda currently as elections. I mean, theoretically, I can amend the agenda to put consideration of this other thing on there, so on and so forth. Because that is a special meeting to hold that is an additional meeting to hold an election that happens to be at our regular time. The last meeting on May 1st has, again, one item. These are still regular meetings that business can be done at, and I can amend the agendas or generate an agenda that has multiple items on it.
I actually tend to agree with Clay on this one, because if we're going to go to like HLC, I would think the entire body should see the argument.
Bouncing off of Lauren and Clay, I would like more time to consider this, and perhaps as a group potentially, and draft something to bring to the second meeting as a special item along with elections. Yeah.
Do we have all the HLC reps in the room?
I think Alex was in the reps as well.
Yeah, Alex
Right.
is sick, so
Yeah.
I'll let her know.
So motion for that?
Yeah, like maybe just the committee reps can.
So, motion to have the committee reps generate a complaint regarding the HLC process.
Second.
There's still a motion on the table, correct?
That's fair.
I will pull that motion, however you say that.
Okay.
I'd like to take that away from the table.
You rescind your motion.
So motion to create on the next agenda an item for this.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Sweet.
Just for the sake of getting shit done, do y'all want me just to like chair this and then everyone can give me what they have received from all of their committees? So we don't actually have to physically meet and then I can compile that into an argument?
Sure, why not?
Does that work? Okay.
Okay.
Alright.
So yeah, HLC is not going well. I was asked by the Chancellor to share the Diversity Council's plan, draft plan with the body. I have not yet done so because I haven't talked to my co-chair, and I'm not about to go rogue on that one. So that's my report from the Diversity Council. The Chancellor's Executive Budget and Planning Committee is looking for nominations. Theoretically, I would still be the nominee until May the 15th, when my term ends and the next president takes over. So given that this is typically one of the presidential duties, I don't think we need to actually nominate somebody. Whomever wins becomes that representative. Second, I have nothing else. Those are all of my committees. Roundtable?
I've got one quick thing. It's got food, I think.
Ooh.
And maybe wine again. We're having a big symposium at the law school. It's Thursday. The Law Journal. I got elected to it. It's the executive board. So it's not me hosting this, but it's the previous executive board hosting it. And it's exploring the Second Amendment 2 years after DC versus Heller. There's proponents, opponents, both sides. Some of the top scholars in the nation on both sides. It's all day Thursday. It's like 9 to 3.
Okay,
In the auditorium at the law school. Should be pretty cool.
Wine at 9 a.m.
I think that's towards the 3 p.m.
But you never know.
But there is lunch.
Is there like time frames? Like, is it like hour sessions, or can we? Is there like
so
if
there's
we
four
came in
different,
between?
4 different panels.
Okay.
There's like 9 to 10, 10 to 11.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So about hour.
Thursday.
There is a lunch in here.
There's a lunch, but you have to like RSVP, and it's way too expensive, so don't do lunch.
We had to pay for the lunch.
Yeah.
Okay, and
15 for students and 50 for non-students.
It's not pizza.
Oh.
So,
better not.
also tomorrow, the United Nations Association of Southern Illinois will present Water for the World, and that will be at 7 p.m. in the Guyan Auditorium in Morris Library. I highly recommend that. The United Nations Association does a lot in our community, and they work with my organization, International Immigration Law Society, so we always try to support them.
And then also I was going to mention that GAU is hosting a graduate student work-in on Thursday from noon to 1 at the library. And so this is just an opportunity to gain visibility for graduate students as we are negotiating or requesting a 2% raise. And to say that we work, or the university works because we work. There'll be a press conference held at 12:30 outside in front of the university. And we're also going to be holding that with ACE. And they're they do the administrative work around campus, and they're also requesting a raise at this time. So it's about visibility. So if you'd like to just come in, do some work at the library with us, we certainly invite you to gain visibility of the graduate students and the work that we do.
What time is that again?
It's from noon to 1.
The Culture of Respect is having their final meeting with training programs tomorrow, and I suspect that we will have a 3 to 5 year contract signed within the next 3 weeks for a new training program.
Oh, and I wanted to know, did I say Thursday? Okay, let me make sure.
Last thing, Board of Trustees policy says that a campus constituency group or other such recognized body of a campus can submit a request within 2 weeks of the next board meeting to have an item or to deliver a presentation before the board on any matter of its choosing, pending approval by the board. It is my recommendation, probably one of the last ones I get to make as president, that we develop a presentation for the board on whatever data we get out of the ARC or out of the GSS, and just lay it on them. Because as I said, one of the things that is an issue with boards of trustees is they're typically distant from the campuses they administer, and for us to show up with empirical data on the graduate student experience kind of puts in their face the need to actually engage with some of our issues. Final thing is, the final thing is, student trustee elections have begun. You can vote on desire to learn. We have heard from both of the candidates. It is your responsibility as GPSC representatives to inform your constituents that the student trustee election is ongoing, and to encourage them to vote. For the past couple of years, graduate student participation in the student trustee election has been kind of lackluster, particularly last year given the controversy over the guidelines. We fixed the guidelines. We got most of everything we wanted in the guidelines, so it's on us to show up and make our voices heard with regards to the student trustee election. So we should tell your folks and get out there and vote.
That election will end tomorrow at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
Did GPSC endorse a candidate?
We did not, because that requires a motion from this body to do so. I did not make, or no one has made such a motion, and we still have quorum if one wants to make said motion.
A motion to endorse Breon as the candidate.
So there is a motion for this body to endorse Breon Lockett as candidate for student trustee. Is there any discussion?
I just, with no disrespect to Brown, I think over the controversy last year and how GPSC was drug into it last year, that as this body to maintain transparency, that we should not endorse any candidates. But I mean, I completely believe that Breon is capable of being a student trustee and he would make a great student trustee. But over that controversy, I've had to maintain transparency in that.
That's
not
fair.
being involved, but you all
I
can.
would say that, because, I mean, the election ends for tomorrow, and I don't know how much difference our endorsement would make. And I mean, we do have a D here, but I just think, we have to work with this person in the future, like, if it's Breon or not Breon, and I voted for Breon, like, I hope he wins, but I don't know if it's the best idea for this board to do that. Unless we had done it, like, weeks before, or, like,
I agree.
or before.
I agree with Kate.
And by the way, I attended the debate between both, and they were both great, and they did a wonderful job. But maybe to me, I don't know if that's right to say or not, the thing that Brianne was mentioning is that he was an undergrad and a grad student in this school, so he has been here for like long to be able to understand things deeper, but that doesn't say anything or
Right,
bad thing about it.
Exactly. I mean, I think that she would be capable as
Yeah,
well.
she's-
She might
sure.
need a little more, need to
sure.
put a little more into it, but I think
Yes.
that she would do a decent
Both,
job as
both are
well.
great.
But over that controversy last year, I think that we should maintain.
Is there a motion on the table?
Yes, there is a motion to for this body to endorse
Do
Breon
we
Lockett.
continue or?
This
No
is
second?
The second was made, right? You mean second?
Yeah, I can get my second.
I mean, if someone makes second.
You can, yeah, you can vote still, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, we can vote.
Yeah, you can still vote.
All right, so all in
You can
favor.
abstain if you want to abstain.
So all in favor of endorsing Breon Lockett for student trustee? Show of hands. Damn.
I feel like I should just take it out.
Yeah,
How many abstentions?
I mean, yeah.
So GPSC abstains from.
I ended up.
He's not here, so yeah, you just leave it alone.
I'd like the motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Okay.
All in favor?
Bye.
Yeah, that's that.